Ramzi Khalid Ismail, aka Johnny Somali, has finally submitted an apology, but we are going to get into why it is too little too late today on The Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. Of course, this is a fast facts video, the quick and dirty version of the latest in legal news. So once again, delving into Somali's legal saga, we get into this ending part of the trial, because at this point, let me clarify, the trial, the case in chief, the presentation of evidence is done. Ramzi Khalid Ismail, Johnny Somali's trial is over, except for the date of sentencing and the date of the verdict. Except for that announcement, that's pretty much done. All the evidence, everything else needed to really already be submitted by now or by the closing date. And that closing date already passed as of last trial. And the last trial, Johnny Somali, RKI, did submit an in-court apology during his closing. Now, we analyzed that apology and we found it to be a really non-apology. And in my last video, if you guys check that out, after the trial, after he gave that in-court apology, he proceeded to attack Koreans, attack Korean culture, call them stupid, say they'd get destroyed in a war, say they were, all sorts of negative, nasty things about Koreans, and continue to demean Koreans.
I think Korea is one of the most stupid countries in the world. I don't even think Korea is a first world country. I honestly think Korea is probably a second world country at best. Because how are you so stupid?
So I think in light of that, and possibly in light of watching the videos calling him out on that, he decided to finally submit an official apology to the court. Now, what does that mean? What is an official apology? Well, you see this here in the court filings here, filed on 3/17/2026. That's Pigoin defendant submits a letter of reflection. So that is what it's typically called, as a letter of reflection that is submitted to the court. The problem for Johnny Somali is he submitted it in the worst possible way. And we're going to get into why he made a mistake. But first, make sure you guys, if you haven't, check out the Cabbage plushies, which are now available in the comment below, pinned and in the description. Now they're live and very, very cute and frustrating to Somali. But that said, we go over to what you're supposed to do with these filings. So the letter of reflection. This is a document that you're supposed to submit often multiple times during the trial to show you're sincere and to show genuine, sincere apology and reflection. So if we look at the Korean streamer Youngman, and Youngman is very relevant, not just because it's a person that was involved in the case. Once again, there's a reminder, Youngman attempted to have a settlement with Johnny Somali over his deepfake, because there was a deepfake of Youngman and Hank making out, and that was not accepted by the prosecutor. They did not actually consider that in issuing their sentence. They in fact completely ignored that settlement and said, we're still going to charge Johnny Somali even if you don't care about it, or even if you guys came to some sort of agreement. Well, Youngman did what is typical in a Korean trial, in a Korean defense scenario. So his trial began much like Johnny's last year. His began later on 6/18, and Johnny's began on March 7th. So you have a little bit more time for Johnny. So Johnny had more time, and what did he do this entire time? Nothing. He submitted absolutely no letter of reflection when the trial was going on, until the trial effectively ended on February 27th. That's the end. You're not submitting any more evidence. They're not considering anything else. It's done. Well, what did Youngman do? Well, he submitted multiple letters. You see, in June, in July, in August, in October, in November, 8 total letters, 7 of which were during the trial. So he submitted over and over and over and over again these letters showing how sincerely apologetic he was and how sorry he was. And that last letter, the important thing about that last letter is, even though the judge didn't consider it, he did that to show overall, hey, I'm sincere and these are sincere and I meant what I said by this, even knowing that, hey, the case is over, the judge is not going to really consider that. But the judge had 7 other letters to look at to show the sincerity of Youngman. Once again, a typical Korean defendant. But Johnny Somali, who's been ignoring the advice and ignoring really what you're supposed to do in a typical Korean trial, because he thought it was going to go his way. He thought the charges would be dropped. He thought things would go away. Well, that didn't happen. And you see here, it's a little too late. So here's my judgment. The judgment is too late itself as the trial is over. And we also have something we're going to go over on a future stream, a submission from the Somali conviction team that we got done back in April 2025. We submitted that to the judge and the prosecutor. And in that, we predicted he would eventually submit an apology. Now, even we couldn't predict that he'd be stupid enough to not submit it until the trial itself is over. So that was something we even didn't know how stupid RKI could be. But in that, we predicted that he would at some point apologize and gave very detailed reasons on why that shouldn't be taken seriously and why he needed jail time. And that, because it was submitted last year at this point, was something that the prosecutor and the judge can consider, would consider, and are considering when they look through this and we go towards sentencing and the verdict date. So while we've got evidence that's in there timely that they've been considering, Johnny Somali's is not going to happen. So at this point, it's unlikely to be taken serious, and I still do not change my prediction of 2 to 3 year sentence with labor and registration as a sex offender. But I want to know what you guys think about this trial and about Johnny's too little too late. We'll catch you on the next one.